This is the Introverted Astrologer, and today I want to take a look at the chart of Andrew Tate. As I'm sure you're aware, Andrew is widely regarded as being a misogynist with dubious business methods. Andrew is a very wealthy individual, was quite ostentatious with that wealth, but it hasn't managed to protect him from the Romanian authorities, who arrested Andrew late last year. He spent a few months in custody and then was released under house arrest. Around a month ago, this was changed to being held pending a judicial review. So his freedoms are still limited and he's not yet out of the woods. He's participating in many interviews at the moment, proclaiming his innocence and emphasising how much he gives to charity. So let's have a look at what's going on with this young man. So as we look at Andrew's chart, I just want to clarify that Andrew has a variety of different birth dates across the internet. I've personally verified that the birth date of 1st December 1986 is absolutely accurate. Andrew has had to file various papers with Companies House in the UK, and this is the paperwork I've used to confirm that date of birth. Andrew has also previously stated that he was born early in the morning. So please bear in mind that the birth chart we are looking at is making a very rough guess. It isn't necessarily accurate. On the day that Andrew was born, the moon could have been anywhere between 2 degrees to 17 degrees of Sagittarius. I've observed Andrew in many interviews, and my personal instinct is that he does have the moon in square to Mars. As you can see, Andrew's chart shows very narrow areas of interest. Most of his planets are in Scorpio, Sagittarius or Pisces. Sagittarius is the most heavily tenanted sign, and you can see the stress between this sign and his Mars and Jupiter. We also have that Venus-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio, linking into both Mars and Jupiter by trine. To have the double whammy of Pluto conjuncting Venus and this taking place in the sign of Scorpio does raise a red flag regarding possessiveness and control. This aspect also brings together two financial planets, and so those trines to Mars and Jupiter could speak of the intense determination to make money and be successful in that. Pluto trine Jupiter just of itself usually shows up in the charts of people who are determined to make better of themselves, to increase the abundance in their lives. But if we turn our attention to that stellium in Sagittarius, this is where we can start appreciating the narrow-minded and fearful base upon which most of Andrew's beliefs are predicated. Sun, Moon and Saturn are conjunct regardless of what time of day Andrew was born. In this, the Sun-Moon conjunction considerably narrowed down Andrew's outlook on life, and Saturn's presence is amplifying that considerably. But Saturn is also bringing in an intense psychological fear of failure and a considerable damping down of that natural Sagittarian optimism and belief in abundance. This is all being amplified by the squares to Jupiter, natural ruler of Sagittarius. And all these planets are also square to Mars. So although Andrew is driven into action by the dynamics of this multiple square aspect, his actions can be very self-orientated and downright selfish. He can be prone to impulsivity and to outbursts under pressure. This grouping speaks of somebody with huge ego needs, a very difficult childhood underpinning that, and the selfishness or narrow-mindedness that we've come to expect. This would be a very prickly and insecure person, and personally I wouldn't rule out violence. Now the sign of Sagittarius is being emphasised, but there's such a lot of stress inherent in it that we will be seeing some of the more negative qualities of Sagittarius. So we could see somebody who feels they are straight speaking, but in actuality, they can overstate things, they can exaggerate and hype it up. There could be self-righteousness and distancing from the emotions. A belief system is very important in the sign of Sagittarius, but this is extremely important in Andrew's case because we have Saturn there too. And so the search to give meaning to life, to understand our psyche and grasp the meaning of our existence is of overriding importance. And people with this placement can spend their life searching for ways of understanding why things are the way they are. This ties in with Andrew's views of how things work, with that fearful grasping for set laws which explain the natural order of things to him. Association with religions can be very prominent in these people's lives, particularly those that have laws or rules about how humans conduct themselves. And we can see that Andrew has indeed allied himself with belief systems regarding the role of males and females, some religion hopping, and that ongoing drive to make the people around him conform to his narrow and selfish views of how the world must work. That Saturn-Jupiter square is very scared of failure, and it seeks out a belief system which is probably steeped in law or doctrine in some way. It can be a fearful belief system. These individuals feel safest when they are allied with a belief system that comes with laws or doctrine. However, in the long run, these belief systems can fail and force the individual back onto their own resources to formulate beliefs of their own that are genuinely and deeply held. Now, Andrew's Mercury is probing and intelligent. However, it does in conjunct with his Chiron. So there has been a fear of not being sharp or clever enough as part of his upbringing. The trine between Mercury and Jupiter is often seen in people who are searchers for the truth, that those who have a natural talent for teaching or coaching, which has formed part of the base for Andrew's success. Now, everything in Andrew's chart links back to Jupiter. Jupiter rules his entire stellium in Sagittarius. Mars is the ruler of his stellium in Scorpio, but Mars itself is in Jupiter's sign, and his north node is ruled by Mars, but again Mars is in Jupiter's sign. So Jupiter is an extremely important planet in this chart. And this is very important when we consider what sort of picture Andrew is looking at over the next few months and into next year. If we turn to have a look at Andrew's transits and progressions over this period, we are hampered by that lack of a precise ascendant or midheaven. His solar arc Saturn was actually semi-square to Mars within 5 minutes last December, and his progressed moon in Aries has been leading up to an exact square with his progressed Sun, which is moving through Capricorn. So he's in the waxing square phase with his lunation cycle. This period lasts a few years, so the intensity of this period has been mounting and has probably become exact this year. So this is a time where we get challenges, crises, tests. As it's a square, action will be needed. This can be a very stressful time. It's also interesting to note that Saturn is transiting through Pisces now. It has made an initial conjunction to Andrew's Mars. That was earlier in April, and it also went on to trine his Venus. That Saturn-Mars is a very difficult transit. This can be a time when we are frustrated by outside events. Our actions and independence are thwarted, producing intense inner resentment and anger. Although we might like to boil over under the pressure of it, we're restrained. It is the pressure cooker. Shortly after beginning that conjunction to his Mars, Saturn trined his Venus, likely prompting him to have a more realistic appraisal of the relationships around him and potentially the management of his money. Due to Saturn's retrograde motion, it's again on his Mars around now. Saturn will make its last contact to Andrew's Mars in January of next year. In fact, the start of next year could be quite difficult for Andrew because Saturn is going to move on and make a passing square to his Sun and also to its own position. Transiting Saturn is going to move on and conjunct Andrew's Jupiter. This will first be exact in April next year. As we've seen, Jupiter is a very important planet in Andrew's chart, and I can see this transit significantly curtailing his freedoms, potentially prompting a more practical appraisal of his own belief systems, and there may be a need to adjust the business model at this time. Because of Saturn's retrograde motion, this is going to be a lengthy transit that spans roughly 8 months. And Saturn will also trine his Mercury now. His concentration will become constrained and funneled to looking and seeing that which is the most important. Frivolous details will not be occupying him at this time. He will be able to fine-tune down to the nitty-gritty with ease. And Saturn is also going to form a square with Chiron. This can be quite a humiliating exposure of our inner wounds, inadequacies, hurts, failures. Saturn will be prizing all of that open. Andrew's Jupiter is actually on the midpoint of Saturn and Chiron in his own chart. More reasons to understand why the position of Jupiter is so important. And so 2024 could see the cracking open of a poisonous vat of pain. Fears of failure, inadequacies, insecurities are going to be exposed and reignited at this time. And transiting Chiron has actually been conjuncting Andrew's North Node this year. It doesn't matter whether you favour the mean node or the true node, Chiron has conjuncted it. So despite the very confident interviews and the blanket assertions of innocence, I don't see that Andrew is out of the woods yet. I hope you found this interesting. I'm curious as to what next year will bring for Andrew Tate. I knew very little about this man, nor wanted to, until a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for watching.